is a fertility center where next-level science and proven treatment plans turn big dreams into big reality. Realities like me! Start your fertility journey today. Learn more at rmanetwork.com. rmanetwork.com.
Dial pound 250 and use the keyword fertility for more information. You'll have the option to receive a one-time auto-dial text from iHeartMedia.
Spending some time reconnecting with nature this summer? Here's a camping hack from LL Bean to make your next trip the best yet. When putting together your gear, wrap a piece of duct tape around your water bottle. It's barely noticeable, but if another piece of gear breaks or tears, pull off your tape to make a quick patch or repair. For more camping hacks, visit youtube.com/LLBean. LL Bean. Be an outsider.
Write that down, Fumi Saito. Write that down, Fumi Saito.
Hi everyone, welcome back to Write That Down. I'm one of your hosts, Justin Knipper. I edit for FightGameMedia.com and I'm a staff writer at F4W Online and WrestlingObserver.com. I'm back with Japan's leading pro wrestling author, historian, sociologist, and broadcast journalist, Mr. Fumi Saito. All right, welcome to the final episode of our miniseries on the history of Joshi Pro Wrestling, women's wrestling in Japan, Part 3. This is Part 3. Today on this episode, we spend a lot of time. We spend time up front, especially talking about Akira Hokuto and Shinobu Kandori's legendary, historic match, 1993 Dream Slam. We spoke about that, plus the extended rivalry between All Japan Women and LLPW. We also talked about groups like LLPW, JWP, the women's group at FMW in the early 90s. Later on in the episode, we definitely spoke about and spent some time talking about Chigusa Nagayo's comeback to pro wrestling, as well as Lioness Asuka's comeback in 1994, and in 1995, the launch of Gaia Japan. We spoke about Gaia Girls, the documentary, which I mentioned it on the episode, but you can easily find it on YouTube or Dailymotion or some sort of open source video website if you are interested in that documentary. What else do we talk about on this final episode? We spent time talking about the fallout of All Japan Women in when it eventually finished, but also morphed into a number of splinter groups that came out of it. Groups like Arsion, Neo Ladies, Oz Academy, later Stardom, Wave, Sendai Girls these days, Seedling. We talked about the Dark Ages for Joshi Pro Wrestling as well. And from there, we led our discussion into the modern era of Joshi Pro Wrestling. And now there are a lot of topics that I'm sure we couldn't hit. So this is a general history. Despite, 3 episodes we gave you, we're going to have to hit on certain topics and certain figures in the future in, solo series, showcase series that we do focused on one wrestler or one tag team. So if there is something that we had to leave out that you are interested in, just hit us up on Twitter, hit us up via Patreon. We'll try to get to it. There's lots and lots to get to, so don't you worry. All right, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the Fight Game Media Network podcast feed on Spotify, on Apple, Stitcher, Downcast, wherever you listen to your podcast. It does help out a ton. And also, I have a book out right now, a digital e-book thingamabob. It's on Amazon. You can buy it for your Kindle. It's called Stronger Than All. It's a digital match guide to every single New Japan Strong match for the first 2 years of the show's existence. There is a sale going on this month too. You can buy it for just $2.99 US dollars. All right, that's enough. Let's get right into Joshi Pro Wrestling, the history of Joshi Pro Wrestling, our final episode, Part 3.
Right. And yeah, the very first inner promotional match starting from All Japan Women against FMW Women,
That's
November of 92. But the first very very famous one being April 2nd, 1993, Yokohama Arena, where the match lasted all the way to like 12:45 at night.
Everybody missed their last train.
And then most of them missed the train and became a legend. Yeah, yeah. Can you imagine? The wrestling match lasted that long, but people decided. And Yokohama Arena is in Shin Yokohama, so you basically have to take bullet train one stop to get there. And the bullet train runs. Even the regular train and the subway usually runs till like 1 o'clock in the morning, but the bullet train stopped running like at 10:30. And they decided to stay, and then they didn't think about what's going to happen after the show, and it's becoming like almost like a local legend that people run into each other at the middle of the night, wandering around, just to find a local bar or izakaya or someplace where you can actually walk in and spend time until the very first train in the morning.
A lot of lifelong friendships started that night.
I guess, yeah, that night, and also some people went into 7-Eleven or Lawson's, for English-speaking world. Japanese 7-Elevens and Lawson's, a lot of them, they sell beer, liquor. Did you notice that?
That's right.
When you were here? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So they picked up a 6-can of beer and then went to the park to sit, and I don't know how warm that was in April of 1993, but
pretty cold.
And they decided to spend the night at the park drinking canned beer, and then talk wrestling even more.
It was a bright time.
They became like a legend that night after the Yokohama Arena show. We, and spend the night outside until the first train in the morning, and they were happy to do so. But that was the very beginning of the peak era of this inter-promotion superstar against superstar supercard. That Yokohama Arena, especially, that was the night Akira Hokuto became larger-than-life superstar, beating Shinobu Kandori of LLPW. Shinobu Kandori was a star, but not like a idol superstar, but the star in that she was a world champion judoka, amateur rank. And how far can you go as a judo champion, right? And becoming instructor or sensei somewhere, or teach high school gym class, or just be a judo person the rest of your life, and you probably won't be making that much money, And Kandori wanted to pursue something professionally in a profession as an athlete, and Kandori was one of those people that wandered into the wrestling world, much like Naoya Ogawa later on, or the little bit like a Brock Lesnar for that matter.
Yeah.
But the Ronda Rousey was a wrestling fan. She admits that. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Ronda Rousey was a great Olympic judo, and also went to UFC, like a real fight. But it wasn't like step down for Ronda Rousey to become professional wrestler, because she was lifelong wrestling fan, and also that she admits that she was Roddy Piper fan. And also that she studied under judo Jean LaBelle. Jean LaBelle also trained Roddy Piper, so there was a connection. That's why she has this, rowdy, t-shirt and kilt skirt and a black leather jacket she inherited. And there's a nice, warm wrestling story to it, right? I mean, for Ronda Rousey case, but Shinobu Kandori admits that herself that she never watched wrestling as a kid, But this is what she wants to do to make money. It's like so. There's like a mixed bag feeling that this legitimate tough woman should go into this business, and improve something. Or some people resent that. So she's in there just to make money, something. And then, but the common understanding was that this woman, Shinobu Kandori, is legitimate tough woman. Then in a single match against Akira Hokuto, oh my gosh, this is gonna be very interesting, right? And in today's world, there's a double juice. Both women bled, And at the end, that the Northern Light power bomb, that the Northern Light, like a brainbuster thing, that Akira Hokuto pinned Shinobu Kandori very convincingly, and there was a sensational match. And then that was like that really sped this boom period, the peak era that let's come back and watch more women's wrestling, because this Yokohama Arena show that drew 18,000 plus fans, and a lot of these male fans, but it was their first women's match live. They attended the big show, so there's right. Let's come back for a more live show, and that year alone, All Japan women had Osaka Fritz at the Budokan, Nippon Budokan, and Nagoya, Rainbow Nagoya Hall show, that the Tokyo Bay NK Hall. That's a nice 10,000 people, audience building that's right next to Tokyo Disneyland. But that building, Tokyo Bay NK Hall, it's not there anymore. But for about 10-year period, a lot of the big show was held at the Tokyo Bay NK Hall, right next to Tokyo Disneyland. That's another, useless trivia. And end of this December '93, they finally came back to Sumo Arena, Sumo Palace. Yeah, Sumo Palace. They hadn't had that Sumo Palace show since Crash Girls era, so that was symbolic.
And I think listeners that might be a little younger need to also recognize that at this time there wasn't such a thing as MMA quite yet. It wasn't.
Nope, not yet.
We were
not yet.
talking
That's
about
right.
Ronda Rousey earlier. Ronda Rousey had the option. She went into UFC and MMA first because she had that option, because it had already established itself as a business.
Sure.
By the time she started. While Kandori, probably, I would say it's safe to say
That's
she
right,
would have done
right.
something similar.
Right. Kandori, she would have done that. Right. Oh, I think so. In Japan, you had to wait till late '90s. Right.
At least.
Shinobu Kandori's debuted '86. Yeah.
Right. So she and others that wrestled like her were ahead of their time, and along with the UWF groups and all the shooters.
Right. This slightly different era. Right.
Right. So they, in pro wrestling terms and pro wrestling context, it had a different flavor than it would now. It could only have happened then in the '90s and that's also what gave it that intensity, and there was a lot of fire between Hokuto and Kandori in that match. It was really like a precursor to the UWFI New Japan feud a couple of years later, where it was
Seemed like it.
pro wrestling versus shoot fighting, mixed martial arts, whatever you want to call it.
Right. Not quite MMA yet.
But not pro wrestling either. Or
The
not.
flavor was there.
Yeah.
Of it.
So, and people are
It's a pro wrestling, but not fully grew out of, the traditional pro wrestling flavor either. But the wrestling fans enjoy that, though, because, like you and I, the same in America or Japan, the wrestling fans generally grew up being told that wrestling is fake, wrestling is bad, and whomever loved wrestling so much as a kid, they'll tell you in your neighborhood, some uncle, the school teacher, your homeroom teacher will tell you, oh, the wrestling, so we have same stigma, so that was like there's a time that they prove, look, watch this match, you call it fake, huh? Right? So wrestling fans always have to almost defend myself. Yeah. And
I think a lot of those wrestlers from that time were the heroes of the people who felt that way, like Funaki, like Sayama.
Yeah, but a lot of them, like Satoru Sayama himself, that created Shuto, a complete MMA genre, and UWF, then into Fujiwara Gumi, then Funaki and Minoru Suzuki ended up starting Pancras, and Pancras ended up being complete MMA today. Nothing to do with pro wrestling anymore. It's just interesting, history piece there.
It took a different.
But anyhow, different path. Some people like Nobuhiko Takada joined with MMA and never were able to come back. I wish they did, but you know what I'm saying?
Well, he's more like a TV personality these days. He's not really much of a fighter.
Oh yeah, completely retired. And Nobuhiko Takada, in his case, that he doesn't mingle with wrestling people anymore.
No, he's like, he's a talent.
Yeah, definitely talent. I just the other day I happened to switch channel, and then I saw him as a detective or something. Yeah.
Yeah, his
Yeah, that was
transition to
interesting. That's
the
cool.
post wrestling life, like some wrestlers over here do too. John Cena, The Rock.
Right. Riki Choshu, and yeah, right. That's fine. That's fine with me. But back to women's wrestling. This 1993, April 2nd, Yokohama Arena show was a big landmark, I think. And that year alone, they had a lot of, huge shows, like almost every month. The Budokan this month, and Osaka next month, and the following month, Nagoya, back to Tokyo, the Sumo Palace, and all these things. And well into 94, they had another Yokohama Arena in March again. And then August, Budokan. And then 94, in November, you have Tokyo Dome. Yeah.
So at around this time, who were the superstars that people wanted to see the most? Who was at the forefront of these couple years, 93, 94, 95?
Bo Nakano, Aja Kong, Manami Toyota, Kyoko Inoue, Takako Inoue, yeah, Mima Shimoda, yeah, those. And we mingled well enough with JWP and LLPW. The hardcore wrestling fan knew of Shinobu Kandori, right?
Mm-hmm.
But by having this promotional match, that the people started going to LLPW show. So that was a win-win situation. And with JWP, there were people like Dynamite Kansai, the Cutie Suzuki, that Mayumi Ozaki, that they got their own stars, right? And there was like a single match, Aja Kong against Dynamite Kansai. Oh wow! I almost said two tough guys, but no, tough women. I'm sorry. That like a short hair, that the costume is really masculine, and it's like they're women, but they were a type of, Manami Toyota type of women's wrestler, but there's a type of Dynamite Kansai and Aja Kong and Kyoko Inoue, the more boyish kind of athletes that they catered to different kind of audience. If I you know what I'm talking about.
They wrestled more like orthodox style male wrestling. Like they didn't do any of the high flying, any of the lucha.
Yeah, and both Dynamite Kansai and Aja it works like a UWF almost, kicking pad and this MMA finger gloves,
Mm-hmm.
and the suplex submission, and they don't even lock up; they'll kick you first. You know what I'm saying?
More
so style was there.
Yeah, kind of mirrored what was popular in some circles at the time with men's wrestling, and with the women's wrestling. All Japan's women didn't have as much of that flavor as the non-All Japan women's groups.
And All Japan women's wrestling had the visual influence from male wrestling. Yeah. And the Manami Toyota admits that she grew up watching All Japan women, but never really watched men's wrestling. Very interesting. So it's like a completely different style, or like almost like a different sport.
NFL Sunday Ticket is now on YouTube and YouTube TV, which means that it just got easier to be an NFL fan, even if you live far away. Like maybe you like the Bears, but you're hibernating in Panthers territory. But with NFL Sunday Ticket, your out-of-market team is never more than a short distance away. Specifically, the distance from you to your remote control. NFL Sunday Ticket, now on YouTube and YouTube TV. Go to youtube.com/presale to get $50 off.
Terms and embargoes apply. Offer ends 9/19. No refund. Subscription auto renews.
What's up? It's Kaylee Cuoco. When it comes to travel, we all have a happy place. I just went to my happy place. I just went to Maui, and it was truly amazing. Priceline has always been about getting you to your happy place for a happy price with deals you really can't find anywhere else. Like up to 60% off select hotels in Costa Rica or 5-star hotels for 2-star prices in Cabo.
Go to your happy place for a happy price. Go to your happy price, Priceline.
Before we forget, 1993 was a year that Chigusa Nagayo made comeback. She died back in 89, but she decided to come back as a wrestler. And 94, Lioness Asuka, another half of Crash Girls, Lioness Asuka decided to make a comeback in 94, which was interesting. And initially, Nagayo worked, shows for All Japan Women, but they announced that the August of 94 that she's starting a new group called Gaia Japan. another new company. Yes. Then Gaia Japan, yeah, their first show won't happen until 95, but Gaia Japan is famous for this. That it was a British the documentary Gaia Girls that they did a long documentary movie that like a really almost like a violent, that this young girls trying to become a professional wrestler. They had a long documentary. You should maybe you know this movie, so you're better at explain that to the audience.
Yeah, it was a BBC documentary in like 1999, 2000. Was it right around that time?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
we got a lot of Nagayo. She was in charge of the Gaia school. We saw a young and very intense Meiko Satomura. I think 15. Was she 15?
15-year-old Meiko Satomura was in it. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, she's intense.
Right on 9th grade. Yeah. She didn't even go back to school 10th grade. She decided to become a wrestler.
And a few years later, I think around that time, she did show up on a WCW broadcast.
Right. That's a smaller show.
Like WCW World or WCW
Worldwide
Pro. Yeah, worldwide.
Yeah, her and Uematsu. Yeah, WCW Pro, WCW Worldwide show. Yeah. And taped like 3 matches and left. Yeah. Her and Uematsu. Yes.
But the documentary, I think it's pretty easy to find on YouTube or Dailymotion if you just type in Gaia Girls, GAEA Girls. So it's out there.
Documentary. Yeah.
It's pretty intense. It's not for the faint of heart.
Right, and also how brutal the training was, and almost like a violence.
Yeah, it was almost like they had to prove.
But it was like very shocking documentary piece for. Yeah, serious they were, and it wasn't the original for Chigusa Nagayo because it was the exact training that she went through as a rookie when she was with All Japan Women. Yeah.
So it was a kind of a first glimpse into that kind of the background world.
Right. And documentary and the movie footage. Yeah, and then you can still watch that. And that's how they do in Japan or something. It's almost prejudice, but not so far from reality. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
I think
so 94, the boom period was still, yeah?
Oh, I was just going to mention before, if anybody's a fan of Hirota Sakura, that Gaia movie it features.
She's in it.
I think 14-year-old Hirota Sakura. It's funny to see she's a mother of 2 now, but it was a while ago.
Right. So there was a funny kind of wrestler and a serious kind of wrestler because Hirota Sakura and Meiko Satomura is like a complete like
night and day.
Like extreme from one end of the spectrum to the other. Yeah, but they both came out of the Gaia school. Yeah,
same training.
And then same training camp. Yeah. So 93 huge the period, and also that was the year that Bo Nakano the Aja Kong finally beat Aja Kong. I mean Bo Nakano for the red belt. So the torch was handed. Bo Nakano, huge superstar, but she dropped the title, red belt, the All Japan, the WWWA World Title to Aja, so the Aja becomes a total main event. And Bo Nakano decided to leave full-time schedule. And first she went to Mexico, then became CMLL Women's Champion. Then in 94 she went to WWF, and it's not that the Bo Nakano wanted to go, but it was Alundra Blaze, the Medusa, who became Alundra Blaze in WWF, and that they put package together WWF Women's Champion Alundra Blaze against Bo Nakano in America, and that was Bo Nakano's transition. Yeah, for Tokyo Dome, November 94, November 20th, Tokyo Dome card, Alundra Blaze against Bo Nakano title match was brought back from America and had that. So when Tokyo Dome showed, it was like an 8-hour show, and I was there the entire day. And then
you were on commentary.
I watched so many matches that day. It's almost like escaping. Yeah, I couldn't do all 8 hours, but I did a 3-hour portion of it. So we just switched, because people were getting tired, and you can't call, all the matches for 9 hours. So we, traded a spot. Yeah, and I was doing that.
What did fans do?
I guess they decided to stay, or some of the matches, there was actually like, Miyu Yamamoto's, amateur wrestling gold medal champion. older sister of Yamamoto Kid Yoshifumi, and
Kid
they brought
Yamamoto.
this Olympic level women's amateur wrestlers. Kid Yamamoto's older sister Miyu Yamamoto. She wrestled not professional match, but the exhibition in professional ring. And there was time that I guess people decide to just get up and go get something to drink or something to eat and come back and and watch more. So almost like a going to ball game. You can't pay attention to every second of it and every match of every second of it for
8 hours. 4 hours is pretty
9
long. 8 is
9 hours. Impossible. But that was and then also All Japan Women's Wrestling Company knew that it was the one and only time they would be running Tokyo Dome. So I guess they wanted to have everything on it. There was not the MMA, but they used to call it Varitudo. Anything goes match. And the interesting was the Chigusa Nagayo against Reggie Bennett single match. And they had and also one night tournament going, and also it was Akira Hokuto's first retirement show card, and Aja Kong against Manami Toyota single match. And they put a lot of interesting thing on it, but I think it was just tiring. And to be honest with you, I don't really remember all the details of matches from that night. I just remember the fact that I was there. So.
Weren't any big memorable moments? Is there anything you can recall, or
it just bits and pieces, because it was like something that happened at Tokyo Dome, and it was all that thing is how I remember. And also when you watch Tokyo Dome, wrestling show at the Tokyo Dome, it always happened that you are not really watching ring, you are watching the monitor.
Right. Yeah, especially if you're sitting
when you're
farther away.
Oh yeah, every seat is pretty far away, if you ask me. And the ring, and you hear thump, 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 like like a box slam or hip toss or something. You hear the sound from your right ear, but you hear like a half-second delay sound from that screen. Something really, kind of strange feeling. Dun 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 dun. It's like a almost half-second delay. You have two sounds, different sound. And that takes attention away from you. But that happens at every Tokyo Dome show. Even New Japan's, Wrestle Kingdom, everybody's watching this from pretty far away. And if you're not in a big floor arena, that's still far away too. But if you're sitting on the stand, you will be watching the big monitor, what they call it, oral vision. Yeah.
There's really no way around it. There is that delayed reaction on the big matches. So
right.
Yeah.
So the being there and being part of the big historical show was what it was about. And I think if you watch this Tokyo Dome card on video, it's out there. That it looked like a completely different night too. So now that if you want to watch the serious content of the match as a match, that you should go back and watch videos. But the fact you were there was just as important. Yeah. But a lot of people call this, like the peak and the highest moment of this women's, Joshi wrestling's boom period. But it was actually, the Tokyo Dome was like the beginning of the end almost.
Why do you say it was the beginning of the end?
The next year, 95, that they still had Yokohama Arena. Beginning of the end, because it was like something peaked. And also, you and I are old enough to look at this 3-year period of something concrete, some 3-year period. When you were young, like when you a teenager or 20s, 3 years seem like forever. Does that make sense?
It seemed like a long 3 years.
Yeah. So it was like the boom period. Anything, the disco music or the Space Invader, or there's a game, some computer game, Video Boy, something that your favorite thing, that the software or something, the actual boom peak period is about 3 years. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. And then it kind of tapers down. Tapers off.
Right. And I think that this November 94 Tokyo Dome show was like the beginning of the end. They still had Yokohama Arena show the following year. The Sumo Palace show and all these things, but it was like wasn't really there. And when they finally had 2 consecutive nights at the Budokan in August of '96, we saw some empty seats. Yeah, and that was '96 was the year Akira Hokuto coming out of retires just after 2 short years. And she joined Gaia Japan for this time, and also another group called JD, John Dark. JD started, and Jaguar Yokota became coach of that, and a lot of the new thing, that not just All Japan women, but actually Bo Nakano is no longer the part of the All Japan women group, and Aja Kong and Manami Toyota, the Kyoko Inoue, the Mima Shimoda, the Mita probably, and maybe probably Yumiko Hotta. That's about the big roster, but something was missing already in the year of '95, '96. In my eyes, yeah. So that they burned out new wrestling fans, or they just, I guess, boom period was coming to an end. It felt like, yeah.
So when was
yeah?
it exactly that All Japan women started to fizzle out?
Falling?
Yeah.
I think it started falling like a spring of '97. It lasted '96, and they were still having their last corner of in a promotion match, All Japan against JWP, All Japan women against LLPW, and there's trying to scratch every bit of it. And '97, Kyoko Inoue all of a sudden quit All Japan women, because they were being actually late for the paychecks, like every month salary. And what was interesting was that September of '97, okay, September of 1997, All Japan women all of a sudden filed bankruptcy. Oh, right. And wait a minute, that lasted till 2005, right? What was so interesting was that the All Japan Women Company in 1997, when they filed their bankruptcy, that meaning that no bank will do business with you, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Hello.
So, are you there? Yeah.
Yeah. What was happening was that they announced that after the first bankruptcy, they announced that we will be still running wrestling show. How, right? Cash only basis. That means that's just like hope it's making any sense. Is there anything
you could say
talking
they
about
were
right now?
You could say they were in trouble by then.
They filed bankruptcy, and then yeah, and All Japan Women, we haven't covered this much, but it's a very interesting, company. They opened business 1968, right? And they always had this Channel 8, Fuji Television's, Fuji Television always carried the show, and I was also paying them annual rights fee. There's the good chunk of money coming from the network channel. And actually, they were in business for 10 years by then. And All Japan Women's Wrestling, 1968 to 1997. So they lasted 30 years, right? Almost, And New Japan, Antonio Inoki's New Japan Pro Wrestling never had their own building. They were in one floor of some building, right? And Giant Baba's All Japan Pro Wrestling, they never had their own building. All Japan, Giant Baba's. Whereas All Japan Women owned their own building, 2 buildings in Meguro. And there was we used to call it Palace, because it's a 2 building built, right next to each other. One had this, the parking space where they can park 3 different buses, like 2 buses, babyface and the heel bus, and also that another truck to have just the ring and cheers in there, And the second half of this, the ground floor, there was a dojo, dojo. All Japan dojo was ringing and everybody practiced. And second floor, they had the office. And the second floor, left hand, the half the building, they had Sanzoku, the big restaurant. And the third floor, fourth floor on, that the rookies and girls were living, and on up on fifth floor, midgets were living. The midget wrestlers, and they had restaurants, they had karaoke houses. But karaoke, studio is not. I mean, it's like you call it. The karaoke became English word, but they had karaoke studio bar way back in the 80s. And they had different restaurants, they had ramen houses, and they had real estate department. And we don't know much details, but All Japan Women and four Matsunaga brothers were the only one had their own building and their own restaurant going and real estate, that department, and they must be doing the fortune, right? And then also something probably about the real estate, that the part, something they done or something that they lost a lot of money or something. And then all of a sudden, 1997, a year after this peak year, they were fighting bankruptcy, and then nobody knew what was really the reason for it, but they still announced it, that they are still running wrestling shows because, Takashi, the boss, Takashi Matsunaga's core, that's the only thing they can sell now. And on cash only based business between 97 and 2005, they lasted another 7 years. It's just incredible, and different kind of people, right?
Diehards help really.
I guess.
Joshi Pro Wrestling.
And also more like if bank and pay, like checkbooks and bookkeeping, it's not holding it, they can still run wrestling. Cash in, cash out, every night out, night in, day in, day out, they can still operate wrestling. And that's exactly what they did another 7 years. I needed to point that out because 1997 was the year that the first Kyoko Inoue left. Then Rasi left the company, Rasi Ogawa.
Mm-hmm.
And Kyoko Inoue started her first neo-ladies wrestling. And Rasi Ogawa, they took Aja Khan, and Reggie Bennett, Mariko Yoshida, and like a 5, 6, 7 girl came with Rasi Ogawa, and he started his Arsion company. Yeah, like a forerunner of today's Stardom. Yeah, the first company Rasi started was Arsion. Yeah, that started in 1997. That meaning that All Japan was, like going to three, different, like a split. Bonakano is not part of that group anymore, and Akira Hokuto, was not part of that group. She joined Gaia Japan, and Toshio Yamada later on joined Gaia Japan as well, because Toshio Yamada was like Chigusa Nagayo's number one protege, and so it's like half the crew left, All Japan Women, and Manami Toyota became like a single main event wrestler with All Japan Women. Yeah, that year. And that's already end of 1990s, right? So the millennium coming, and you hear that 96 and 97 was the year Nobuhiko Takada had this Hickson Gracie match at the Tokyo Dome, like your UWFI superstar and the best thing ever, Nobuhiko Takada, right? And had, this Tokyo Dome MMA match against Hickson Gracie 2 years in a row, 96 and 97. 2 years in a row, he lost in a few minutes. You know what I'm saying? And it was like, that's when this really loyal professional pro wrestling fans start scratching their heads. Like, something wrong with this picture, right? Are you with me on this?
People's, what's the word? Not just their minds were changing, but it was the whole perception of what pro wrestling was completely flipping over on its head, at least in Japan at first, and then later in the States and worldwide.
Yeah, because UFC was not, they're not, running shows in Japan, but the videotaped and like a cable satellite TV special of UFC was happening. And also people have seen Masakatsu Funaki, Minoru Suzuki, Ken Shamrock's Pancras, coming out of traditional pro wrestling, and pro wrestlers start MMA. There was no word yet, I don't think. but the MMA type professional wrestling around that time era. So people start going like, huh? And if it was all 100% legitimate contest, it would not look like that, right? And yeah, so the millennium coming and just the beginning of dark age of professional wrestling and trend. That's what I'm saying, I think. Then, yeah, then 99, 2000, of course, wrestling was around, but oh, wow, this something about this, this pro wrestling was there like, the people, I mean, even the lawyers wrestling, the wrestling was something that we all enjoyed during 20th century. And when 21st century comes, it may not be, no longer be part of our everyday life or something. And it's just we had the feeling, it's like a real bad feeling about pro wrestling. Huh? Does that make sense? Remember, like
there was a gray cloudiness in the air. Yeah, wrestling was changing.
Yeah, everything has to come to an end or something. We really felt that during this millennium era. People who liked like UFOs, like you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, that was so bad. And it's like everything that like a supernatural thing. Oh, that was so fake. All these mysteries solved before the new century or something. All the music will be changed or everything will be different in new century or something. And we just, because it only happens once in 100 year, and we were there and we really felt that. And what's, I mean, not all that much different from previous years, but we were led to believe that when a new century starts, everything will be different. Does that make sense?
It was going to be different, but it was, so everyone thought bigger or better.
Yeah, of course. Bigger and better. It hasn't been, though. 20 years later, now it's what the COVID and a war. And
at that time, I think Joshi Pro Wrestling got smaller and more niche than ever for, from between the...
Yeah. All in all, that boom era, peak era, really had to come to an end. Yeah.
But it's all where the current stars came from. A lot of the current stars that we see, they came from this time period. They came out of that time period. Asuka, Yoshirai.
Yeah. Oh, of course. Yoshirai, Asuka, or today's superstar didn't really watch, good wrestling, or that the 90s peak period was something they heard about or watch on old VHS tapes,
Mm-hmm.
And there really was dark period, not just women's wrestling, but men's wrestling. Not the day to cover this, but we have to really touch this subject too. That the New Japan Pro Wrestling was the one who got the hit the most. That retired Inoki, Antonio Inoki, pretty much sided himself with what the MMA world. If you lived in Japan, and then if you remember about the 6-7 year period, every New Year's Eve, December 31st, and NHK have this, has always traditional singing, that music festival kind of thing all night long. And Channel 4 had Inoki Bomaye. Channel 6 had Pride. Channel 8 had K1. They all looked the same because they're all MMA shows all night long, Then there was not a wrestler, probably like a Kazuyuki Fujita from, come out of New Japan, but Fujita wasn't considered pro wrestlers, anymore at the time. Probably maybe Kazushi Sakuraba, but Kazushi Sakuraba's peak was pretty much like 2001, 2002 when he beat Royce Gracie. But Sakuraba himself, switched K1 and Pride back and forth, for this like a bigger contract or something. But people didn't look at Sakuraba as a professional wrestler. The ones like Yuji Nagata, then an IWGP champion, or somebody like a Kendo Kashin without mask, they had matches against people like Milko Krokop or the Fedor Emelianenko with just 2 days training. That's impossible, right?
That's it's still, every time you hear it, it's pretty. Yeah, it's unprecedented. I mean, shoot, and it really, it was a big gamble. All of it, there was a lot of big gambles.
Yeah.
Inoki, when he
not
went to the MMA side, he
not
took
that
gamble on
Nagata
that
was
side.
not good enough. Both Nagata, Yuji Nagata, Kendo Kashin, Ishizawa, or Manabu Nakanishi, they were all college wrestling champions that turned professional wrestler. Nakanishi's case, he was Olympic wrestler, 92 bar and professional wrestler. But Inoki still had influence over this. He wasn't even living in Japan at the time. He was living in LA. In the LA dojo. It was another story for another day. But Inoki still had enough influence to call up New Japan company and offices. Well, send us Nagata and Kendo Kashin over for MMA. They couldn't say no. And Nagata, Kendo Kashin both, it was an under contract wrestler that they couldn't say no about it. But they were nice about it. They shows up night after they had wrestling match and had match against people like a Krokop and Ferrer, Emelianenko. And of course they weren't ready for that, But that costed wrestling a lot more than the surface. That a lot of loyal professional wrestling fan really left pro wrestling because of it, Well, I want to watch something like a Pride and K1. I don't blame them, But that was the dark of wrestling. And women's wrestling was not pop trying to get there. Oh, it took them like years to, we probably had to wait till like 2010. That's when Rossi started his Stardom this time. Yeah. Stardom already has 10-year history, But it was 2005, All Japan Women, finally went out of business and really closed the chapter. I mean, the biggest women's wrestling company, and that had the rich history, and then they produced so many legends. And the said Joshi Pro Wrestling, Women's Pro Wrestling, that meant All Japan Pro Wrestling, All Japan Women's Pro Wrestling for decades. Yeah, but they finally went out of business 2005. Did we get any questions from listeners this time?
No, I don't have any at hand, but if anybody has them, they know where to get us. They can get at us at Twitter or via email. But we are recording this a little bit earlier than.
Let's fast forward. Let's fast forward. Yeah, right. But doing it every week, write that down with me and Justin Knipper. That should happen every week. So I guess we're doing it. And fast forward a little bit. That the 2005, yes, All Japan Women's finally closed out the shop, and it really went down. And that was also the year Gaia Japan, Chigusa Nagayo's Gaia Japan closed down too, because they were only going to do it for 10-year period. This sponsor, that the money promoter person, was only committed for 10 year, and 10-year project was over. And Nagayo Chigusa said, yeah, we'll close Gaia Japan. 95 and 2006 was the year. Now grown up superstar, Meiko Satomura opened her Sendai Girls Pro Wrestling 2006. And I felt like that was a brand new era. Yes. And 2007, the pro wrestling wave started. 2009, Ice Ribbon started. 2011, the Diana, the Reina, all these new company coming out, And finally, I got the text message from Rossi one day to the spring of 2010, I believe, that actually I'm doing the company again. Like, are you sure? And I was really, really happy that I was chosen to be one of the very few people that Rossi decided to inform on, and then, oh, great, please be careful kind of thing, right? Because, he lost a lot of money, and he himself had to, file his personal bankruptcy when the company Arsion went down. And he himself had to live in this dark age of professional wrestling for like several years. And yeah, and 2010, he decided to, go, back this company up, and this time called Stardom. And I felt really, really, it was like a promising. It's like, it was almost like an accident when Rossi started the Stardom 2010. If you remember Fuka, another idol wrestler that was like a niche, but pretty popular, and Rossi for about 5 year period was just running small and just had enough 300, 400 people in the audience, but very loyal fan base for every month for 5 year period. And Rossi and Fuka was making like a hand to hand making business and making living with this small portion of wrestling audience, very loyal fan base. And the Fuka at the time was training new girls without really telling Ross about it. At the time, like 2004, 2005, you can actually rent space during the week, during the daytime. The Shinkiba building always have wrestling ring in there. Any independent group can use it, and the wrestling ring was always there. And during the day when nobody was using that building, a manager was like, if wrestler come in and pay $10, $15, $20, they'll let you use this wrestling during the day, like during the week for the practice. Okay. Then Fuka started training rookies. Like among that, there was like a Yoshiko, young Mayu Iwatani. They were like, Fuka was training these girls. Then one day the Fuka brought Rossi over. Like, come over. I'm training these girls. Then there's like 8 girls all ready to debut in the ring. And Rossi scratched his head. Wait a minute. He's like, are you guys like what are you trying to do here? And then none of these girls wanted to work in its existing wrestling companies. That they pretty much was thinking that when they were ready, there's a place to wrestle or something, right? And then not concrete plan. Then Rossi looked at it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. He said, "Wait a minute, this might be his mission for these girls. In order for these girls to work in the ring in completely new environment, therefore a new company." And then there was a Yuzupon, if you remember, her TV project was going. Yuzupon was pretty famous model and also what we call a grabia idol, that the magazine with bikinis and stuff, that she was really, Yuzupon was pretty famous. And there was a TV project to have her as a women's wrestler and have one match and one match only, for the TV special. And Rossi was, helping that thing. And when Yuzupon showed up at the dojo to start practicing, she was so serious that she doesn't want to do just one match for TV. It's like she started coming over to dojo, not the dojo, but the Shinkiba every day to join their Fuka's practice. And they said, if I do something, I want to do it for right and do it for real. And they ended up becoming wrestler for 3-year period. Therefore, Rossi had a completely just all fresh roster to start Stardom with. Then and it's like the rest is like the rest of rest of the story. And then the beginning of Stardom was really exciting because no existing wrestler, it's all rookie. And then the Takahashi from All Japan Women, they joined to coach these wrestlers, and it just happened like a snowballing effect that I felt that this Stardom is going to make it. Yeah. Does that make sense?
I mean, it seems like you're correct on that, because Stardom is, can't argue that it's the number one women's wrestling company in the world right now, just like All Japan was.
Oh, yeah. Then Rossi is the only one that has All Japan Women's DNA in him. And after, All Japan Women's Company, like we always talked about, was run by 4 Matsunaga brothers, Kenji Matsunaga, Takashi Matsunaga, Kunimatsu Matsunaga, and Toshikuni Matsunaga, 4 brothers. And one by one, they all passed. And none of these brothers are with us anymore. And actually, in reality, Rossi is the only one who had this decades of experience with All Japan Women and basically just knows how to run women's wrestling company. And in 21st century style. And that's what we were talking about. And today, I try to count how many women's companies are there in Japan right now. We have Stardom, then this is big, like number one company now is 35 wrestlers in full-time roster. He sold the company to Bushiroad the same owning company with New Japan. It's a big game, trading card, big, huge company with big capital that Rossi just became a president of it, no longer be paying wrestlers from, his account. But Rossi is really happy to be producing the show as a creative end of it. And the business part of it is run by Bushiroad now. So it's in a good position and very biggest company in Japan, women's wrestling is Stardom right now. And then distant second would be what? Who do you think? Sendai Girls or Tokyo Joshi? Or
Yeah, it's
Marvelous?
hard to say.
Yeah, Ice Ribbon, Oz Academy. Yeah.
In Japan, yeah, I don't know. Because the crowds for each promotion are pretty different. There's not too much crossover. Sendai Girls fans don't often go to the Tokyo Joshi Pro Wrestling.
Right, they're all supported by very loyal fan base. Yeah, like you have actress girls that the World Pro Wrestling or Shinshu Girls Wrestling, or they still have the group called LLPWX. The 90s LLPW, but the today's version of it, run by Endo, LLPWX, but they don't run to that all the show. There's another company called Pure J, that run by Borishoi, the Command Borishoi, that is the spin-off of JWP. That exists. Shieldings, the Gato Move, that the Wars Wrestling, Diana, the Reina, the Tokyo Joshi, the Wave. I was just named about 15 different companies. Yeah, and it's good. It's like the WWE should not conquer every single company. The independent company should exist. You know what I'm saying? And just like the independent scene that in America, that the talented young wrestler debuted elsewhere, will eventually come into, eventually will come to Stardom now. That's how their roster got so much bigger now. Yeah. But about 15 women's company, still running their shows today, right now. It's good though. I'd say that the market is big, that it doesn't have to be just one giant company, that's healthier as a market.
I did notice that there was the Hokuto put the special shows together for all of the companies. I forget what.
Right. Oh, it's just the beginning of the
Assemble?
pandemic. Yeah. Oh, definitely Assemble.
Yeah.
They haven't done it this year though. Or the last year. Yeah, so that was not like the company, but more like a project to make women's wrestling genki. Does that make sense?
Yeah, just like kind of because like
how do you translate the word genki?
Exactly. I mean, high energy, lively, vigorous.
Okay. The whole motivation behind it was to make women's wrestling genki.
Yeah, and bright and like you said, lively and
some word don't translate, huh?
It's a special word, yeah. But
so Akira Hokuto as a big senior, it's almost like a alumnus, right? Alumni. Then of the whole industry, that she was influential enough that they can, when and if she pick up a phone, a lot of group will gather. Yeah. And it only happened maybe 2 shows, probably.
Yeah. And there weren't any mixed promotion.
Yeah, but the intention, that was a project. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that the pandemic also interrupted the start of Gaia.
Yeah. Right. But it's still under, basically still under COVID, era, I think. None of these companies are running full-time schedule, that the social distance is getting easier a little bit, but you're still supposed to be wearing your mask, when you're in the building, for the safety precaution, I guess. And none of these companies in Japan running that as many shows as back in 2019. Yeah, that's not just wrestling, but everything. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's hard to cover every single year of Joshi Pro Wrestling, but I think we did a pretty good job at covering everything from, let's say, 1951 up until now.
Think so? Yeah. Then also after these 3 long episodes that people might know more about it, or the details of certain events or the certain wrestlers, or the timeline, or the company map and the wrestling company's geographics, or like the who went where and what happened with this company and that company, and this company became this company, and the change of names and what, and we can always answer more questions.
Yeah, this is
for
the
now.
foundation.
Yes,
I mean,
I think or with this three episodes, we get all the way from 1948 all the way to 2022, and I hope we did okay job on this.
yeah, feel free to reach out and ask questions. If we, of course, we had to gloss over some aspects of, or some years, there are certain things that we'll go over in detail down the road in the future when we focus on,
Yeah, we might have left out something big.
Yeah, we'll get to everything. Yeah. There are lots of topics, unique or distinct topics to talk about.
And also, we provided enough years and dates and names that some serious wrestling fans out there, younger than we are, they please would start their own research from this point on.
There's a lot to research too, so
yeah,
there's a lot out there.
Yeah, and then it's our role, or my role, to head this down to wrestling historian and researching people. Yeah, I really hope that.
Well, if people have questions, where can they reach out to you directly, Fumi?
Okay, at Fumihiko Dayo, Fumihiko Dayo, Fumihiko Dayo on Twitter, or Fumi Saito on Facebook, and please message me first. I'll friend you right away.
And I'm at Justin M. Knipper, Knipper on Twitter. If you have questions, comments, we'll follow up on the next episode. So I guess that's it for now. That's the end of our History of Pro Wrestling in Japan, Women's Pro Wrestling in Japan series, Joshi Pro Wrestling, Part 3.
What should we do next?
Well, if anybody has any ideas,
something next week. Yeah.
But otherwise, we'll come at you with a surprise next week.
Yeah, we'll be doing this every week.
Yeah.
And until then, so long from Tokyo.
RMA is a fertility center where next-level science and proven treatment plans turn big dreams into big reality. Realities like me. Start your fertility journey today. Learn more at rmanetwork.com.
Dial pound 250 and use the keyword fertility for more information. You'll have the option to receive a one-time auto-dial text from iHeartMedia.